head of a company, advisor. I'm looking forward to Professor Peter Wippermann. Big applause.
Legen Sie los. Ja, guten Tag. Ich freue mich heute sehr
Good
dabei.
morning. I'm very happy to be here today. What I brought along is societal change. How does our society change? What kind of technologies are there to change our everyday life? What kind of groups in the society do take those changes on board? And what does it mean to your business? Radical digital, I think, is kind of a working title we could all accept, couldn't we? Now, if we remember good old times, it's exciting to see how fast things can change. In 2007, mobile internet, we're all familiar with that. Now, look at the situation in Hamburg last year at the G20 summit. Maybe you were there as an anarchist. All of a sudden you find yourself in such a situation. All of a sudden you've somebody who dressed up is doing a selfie, posts it, and then hides himself later on, wraps up so that the police can't recognize them. So it makes it quite clear that in the meantime, virtual presence for most amongst us has become so important that they don't think about the consequences anymore. Obviously, this has got an enormous impact on society, namely, we are ready and willing to use technologies. We are ready and willing to implement technologies in order to create new framework conditions. I brought along new buzzwords, 5 buzzwords. First of all, as a title, digital changes the analog world. I think the example of the G20 summit makes it quite clear. Now, if you transfer it to an area which is very important to all of us, namely mobility, it is certainly worth the while to look back at 2004, for example, where the American Research Institute started developing autonomous driving and to call for competition. 240 kilometers was the planned range by those robot cars. The first race was not successful. 11.9 kilometers is what they managed. That was the winner, 2004. When you go to California these days, you see that since the beginning of this year, self-driving autonomous cars are being used by Waymo. Waymo is one of Google's subsidiaries that was a participant in the competition in 2007 already. Just to give you an idea of what is behind, the IT group is changing mobility. Waymo is in a position to prove that they manage a mileage of 9,000 or a range of 9,000 kilometers. Mercedes is just managing 2.9 kilometers without a human being having to interfere. Autonomous driving is quite a good example because this is where we see the important changes between product focus and focusing on the use. And also that the idea of mobility is becoming more and more important. In Germany, in the industry of car makers, we can't really imagine it. People assume that in 2030, all rides are no longer done in people's own passenger cars, but by way of autonomous driving. Just imagine the change of the world in the future. No parking cars anymore. But who will be the winner? It's not the machine engineers. It will be IT groups. Why does it work? I brought along this overview in order to demonstrate the situation. What is the crucial point here? Of course, it's all about money. At the very moment where we're using autonomous cars, we will save money. Probably $6,000 per family of 4 in the United States is the calculation. And you can see in the different industry what the driving force will be behind the implementation of autonomous driving, mostly coming from the areas of e-mobility. Now, you would ask the question, what does it have to do with myself? Because there's numerous offers. For example, those small delivery vehicles that were in the headlines last year, they were used in conjunction with Daimler and the Otto Group. They were food delivery vehicles and they were test vehicles that were sent to customers. That is the idea of bringing automation from a virtual world into the analog world. Now, this is something that we closely observe because you've got this contrast. On the one hand, e-commerce, and on the other hand, you've got the retail trade. And this contrast is blurring. But Amazon Go is another good example. You're checking in with your smartphone. And in the store, you can look at everything, pack in, and then leave the store, and Amazon Go will automatically charge your Amazon account. Now, what's interesting on this picture is that people are not lining up in front of a checkpoint. No, they are waiting for the experience to shop without having to pay in the traditional way. Now, when you look at Starship on the one hand, that was the tiny automatic delivery vehicle, and Amazon on the other hand, and Amazon Go has been launched in 3 American cities already, and then you see the road car. This is the link between self-service, access to a small range of products, and automatic billing by way of sensor and video technology. And this idea, namely that we are going back into a kind of shopping landscape or having this shopping experience, at least when it comes to food, that reminds us of the corner store, with the exception that the corner store is a mobile one now and that there are no people serving you, but that we are becoming active customer ourselves, is the idea that is the crucial novelty. Digitization changes people's everyday life as well. There are savings potentials, and they are certainly the driving power, and we should not forget it. I brought along a few figures, actually. Now, what is counting is the rationalization. Rationalization will take place, and as you can see here, for €1, you'll get 100 times as much in terms of data volume in 10 years, or 10 billion in 50 years, in comparison to today. And when you look at this, you know that on the long run, digitization will change our society. And obviously, at the very point in time where you have more than 200 or 300 hours per day, you will have picking stations like the ones you see here, invented by Swiss locks. They're running autonomously, and they have started a total automation of warehouses, just like the delivery situation we saw a minute ago. Media will change the real world. But the second question is, how fast will that happen? Now, it's very good here to have a look at the consumers. The idea, namely, that interactive media will have an impact on our behavior in everyday life, is an idea that can be checked by each and everybody. Now, this is a typical example here of a mother. She doesn't love technology, but she loves the opportunity to experience 2 different situations at the same time. It's all about time, of being able to do a lot more things. The only resource that is limited is time, as we all know. And the possibility of creating more volume here is something that is ever so exciting, because there are various processes running in parallel and at a higher speed. Now, imagine another situation. In former times, mobile computers, smartphones were something that were meant for adults. Now, it is worth looking at this comparative graph. In 2011, look at the 12 to 13 years old. Only a small minority used to have a smartphone. In 2016, 5 years later, it was 91%. That is a drastic change. 12-year-olds are about to occupy the world of adults, just in the same way as you assumed in former times that once you had your driver's license, you were part of the adult world. And nowadays, younger people are moving faster and faster into the world of adults and are becoming active here. Now, ask the question, what's the situation today? And you will see 18% of the kids who are between 8 and 9 years have got their own smartphone, their own access to the internet. Now, a fifth of kids between 8 and 9 years old have got their own smartphone. Look at the picture and you see the little boy on the right-hand side again. He hasn't got a smartphone. He's got the movement of the hand, but he is socially excluded. And that's crucial. It is not about technology primarily, it's about relationships. At the very moment where you think that as a retailer you want to optimize relationships, you want to get to know your customers, then it would be worth the while to look into the use of media by your customers. I brought along that overview. Once again, that's a comparison between Facebook Web 2.0, where you can see doubling of figures between the baby boomers and the ones you call Generation Z, 20 and below. Now, when you compare that to Instagram, it's quite interesting because Instagram is very much trying to also making shopping offers successful. You see it's a six-fold number in the comparison between the two groups. And when you look at the video area, you see that there's 10 times the amount. And it's very important to think about the target group. Whom am I dealing with and what are the offers I want to present? Am I still familiar with Web 2.0? Is that still at stake, or do I have to use imagery or video? And this movement has started already. You remember how we laughed about people running about with their telephone in their hand and talking while they were walking, and now people are sitting in restaurants photographing their food and then posting it on Instagram. This is history almost already. Normally you would organize house parties today. Now, it's an interface, a surface where you can have a video streaming with 6 participants. You can meet with other people. You don't have to talk to each other, but you've got this feel of media crawl, and you're actually experiencing what we used to call a meeting at a party or in a cafe. So you're entering into the video area and the virtual world at the same time. And you can imagine that this has really a great power. Look at the statistic once again. Roughly half of the Generation Y, or millennials, whatever you call them, most of you are part of this world, are meeting preferably in a virtual world. When you look at Great Britain, you see that 3/4 of the younger consumers that rather meet in a virtual world than in a real world. That is a qualitative change in society. And when you come to think about buyers and their behaviors, you will see that baby boomers are older, so people of my age, for example, are heading towards a biological solution you would condemn, but by and by they will not be available to the market, if I may say so. And those who've grown up with digital media at the moment are the ones that have the power. And then after them will come those people that rather communicate in a virtual world, Generation Y and Z, and that gives you an idea of when complex technologies are to be launched and when you would have to use images and videos. And there's another change still, which has started much earlier in the United States, for example, and which is much clearer and easier to observe. Because all of a sudden you would have people who are attractive, influencers, or their names. Kylie Jenner is the one I'm showing here with 108 million subscribers last week. That was the status of last week. Just imagine that audience. What kind of television station would attract such an audience? Then you observe Kylie Jenner. What did she start off with very early? She's opened her own beauty shop. And you see what's taking place in our part of the world as well, namely that influencers are opening shops. That's one part of the development. And when you look at About You awards in Munich, for example, you would see influencers that are being ranked, that are becoming so important in live television shows as well, so as to turn them in new top models and pop stars. And the idea also that they can tell stories and also present products at the same time is something that is of crucial importance.
Now, if you think about people trying to reduce complexity, and that's exactly what influencers do, you have many more possibilities now than in the past. We have less and less attention span. We don't really have time to think about things. In 2000, we had an attention span of 12 seconds. In 2013, only 8. So that's below the threshold of a frog. If you look to the US, the ads on TV for young people are below 6 seconds. So it's about speed. It is about getting to the point. And there are offers like Follow Whisker from Berlin, a platform for shopping where you work with acceleration and deceleration, a platform based on a blockchain, and you can see or get an impression what happened that reflects the media behavior of what young people find attractive and older people find rather tiring in the market. Now let's stick to the technologies that are currently popular. Artificial intelligence gives us the possibility of analyzing large data volumes and forecast what people really want to develop an understanding. That's something that's beginning now, in its beginning. Blockchain, which was popular because of Bitcoin, and really tries to bring back the lost trust. If you look at Walmart and other retailers, they work on food security, for example, with blockchain, and they're trying to set up shops based on blockchain. And machine learning is experience. You can share and learn from it and then feed it back into your daily work. I brought 2 examples which might show you, well, what could play a role in e-commerce. Chatbots are something that's been used for a year now or so. That's Parker here for people wearing glasses. It's interesting for you because they have a chatbot you can already use in their store in the search function. So you don't have to become active, but the page as such becomes active, interacts with you, asks you for your preferences, and guides you elegantly through the Warby Parker website. Even more radical, a platform from the insurance industry, Lemonade. You know, platforms for comparison of power prices, insurances, and so on can be found in Germany too. This is to try to find the right insurance for you within 90 seconds and to really have people sign it, or 3 minutes to get a refund from your insurance. So this is showing you that overall everything is increasing in speed and will happen faster in the future. 2 years ago, I was active for QVC, and 48% of the respondents surveyed at the point in time said that it is important that things are good for you, that things are fast, that the computer or anybody else does it. It doesn't really matter, and it's worthwhile looking at Daimler. This year, an avatar, Sarah, was used by Daimler Financial Services. Sarah is like a chat bot. She can interact, but she can do even more. So the person being in video contact can be analyzed by her. She understands if somebody slows down, loses concentration, can be in dialogue as call centers are not able to do now. So what has changed? Where are we going? Well, prices are important, quality is important, well, service is a big topic, yes. Telling stories, well, yes, influencer, very much up to date, but acceleration is the element that will become even more important in the near future. This is an example of augmented reality where you can insert people into your real-time, real-life environment of customers. IKEA, for example, shows you what is possible. So our journey becomes more complex, faster. Customers become even more demanding. If you look at virtual reality and Alibaba, you can be in Beijing but go to Macy's and shop in America. So this is really in its infancy, so don't expect too much. But the next consumers are growing up with virtual reality and will expect that they control digital worlds by themselves also when they go shopping online. So the technology is changing, people are changing, our life is changing. And the data protection basic regulation is changing. And this is just an example of a pizza company that is showing that customers are willing to provide information about themselves if it's worthwhile. So this is a pizza company that says it is an IT company. I think it's very impressive. So if you look at that, you can order a pizza by voice, by Google, by Alexa, through all kinds of services. But you can also use variables around your risk or automatically from your car. So the complexity of the media channels is increasing. You really focus on the needs of your customer. That's the response of Domino's. If you look at Domino's in Germany, very successful because customers really tell you what the pizza needs to be like. Think of the complexity behind it. You configure a very simple product. The customer does it. You need to check whether the customer is able to pay. You need to make the pizza, bake it, organize the logistics, and make sure there's always enough material in stock. But something that can only be planned from the customers. And then you have customers who will order from you often. And there's a very nice offer in the US. 0 clicks. So the customer only needs to log on and the computer recognizes immediately what the customer wants, how they pay. And if you don't do anything for 10 seconds, your standard pizza will arrive in 10 minutes at your home. So that's a very trivial market. So repeat orders will not only be automated by Amazon Dash, but also with QVC, the analysis. 32% say that they would provide data to you as a business if that is used for reordering, for example. So that's the Domino Pizza. You have a tracker, you know immediately where it is, and you need to be at home when somebody delivers the pizza to your place. In terms of statistics, it means that the Internet of Things more and more takes shape. The development of networked elements increases, so in the back office, that means more complexity, but it's simplification for the customer. So as soon as you order your individualized pizza, the autonomous delivery robot, this vehicle, needs to be available too. To organize that is something that is of great importance in areas with larger spaces. So in England, for example, where there's more rural spaces, they use drones. You might remember when we laughed about Amazon because they looked into the delivery by drones. But this is something that by now makes no one laugh out loud anymore. It's the logical next step into real life. And here too, it's worthwhile looking at the efforts of Amazon. They have patented a warehouse for drones with a complete fulfillment system. And this only tells you roughly what can be achieved. So this is maybe not a solution for city centers, but for more rural areas. And how do we react to all this? And that's my fourth point. And I think in many retail businesses, that is still very separate. You have purchasing, selling, and marketing. but that will become more networked. It will become customer centricity par excellence. It becomes more and more attractive, and it's really worthwhile looking at just about you, the customized surface user interface is not only linked to this one offer, it is something that develops over time. Think about the theory behind it. It's from an industrial background. We have products which we'd like to sell in large numbers. This has worked for a very long time, but new concepts say we have great customers who spend a lot of money, so what can we offer to them? And this is what platforms can offer, and which will increase in speed due to the new technologies. Think of that. If you want to open your iPhone 10, you don't need your thumb anymore. It's just your face you need. So face recognition has become real. So this is an example of Kentucky Fried Chicken in Beijing. You stand in front of a screen, you get offers, what you can eat here, a camera looks at you, and as soon as you look relaxed, then you get a recommendation for what you certainly should eat, because that's according to your taste. And if you smile, then payment can happen automatically. The funds will flow from your account, and you know what you want to eat. So less text, more images, more and more interaction. Interaction begins to take shape in many different areas. You might know Modiface. That's a Canadian offer that was particularly interesting for people with long hair. They could find out what happens if they have a different hair color, if you change the color of your lips. So that's a styling offer. But this is not an offer for styling anymore. Modiface was bought by L'Oreal, and you can assume that as marketing input, they now know what customers are particularly looking for and are fond of. So L'Oreal can offer the right products. Programmatic commerce is right at the beginning of the development, but it is really starting from the individual customer and knowing exactly what the customer wants. Modiface, with its camera, can analyze your skin and tell you exactly what type of skin you have, what problems you have, and which product would be suitable to reduce the wrinkles. Maybe wrinkles go away even. So you can provide services to your customers due to interaction with media in a mass consumer business. So this is the development that's just starting, but is being driven ahead quite continuously. And in 10 years, we will probably see the potential in changes that we saw with the introduction of smartphones. So we have the mass market segmentation, fragmentation, and you can offer individual solutions to customers. This is something manufacturers find very interesting. Just think of L'Oreal. But if you just look at one retailer, if you look at what the technology can do, Amazon in the US has become one of the most important fashion retailers. And Echo Look is something they offer, a video camera you can talk to. You can get advice on what to wear today, the probability of what you look better in if you combine not pink with black, but stay black and white on that day. So it gives you guidance, orientation, thanks to network technologies. If you then look at what Amazon does, you get an impression of what could be of interest in the future. With Twitch, Amazon is quite successful in the gaming section. Body Labs was purchased by Amazon, and Body Labs is to create avatars, but it's also able to calculate the body data of people moving. So you don't have to get undressed and stand there in your underwear. You can wear whatever you like, and it's just calculating the top layers of your body, and your ideal masses are then stored, and for that is something you can use to produce tailor-made fashion. This is Amazon's next approach. Customer data can be used for customized fashion that is being sewn for you in one day and then delivered to you. It's something that is not reality yet, but T-shirts for luxury fashion brands are produced for 30 cents in the US or Canada, because on-demand clothing is even cheaper there than manual work in Asian countries. So this is what I wanted to bring as an idea for you. 74% of people say that what's most important is that you get your own individualized product. If you look at the brick-and-mortar stores, Nike, for example, you can see the convergence between e-commerce and brick-and-mortar stores. Here you can get a prototype of a shoe, and with augmented reality, you get elements and colors. You say, okay, I want this model, and then within 2 hours, your shoe will be manufactured in the store, and you can take your customized order with you. Customization based on network data is the direction we're taking. If customers are so important, it is really critical to know who you're dealing with. How are customers changing? You need to recognize who you can do business with best. Remember the capsuled coffee, which was really the best you could get. There were small stores, and you were really happy about your beautiful little bag. You could walk around with, Nespresso. George Clooney became very sexy due to that. You can now buy that at Aldi too, but the capsules are not as attractive anymore. But how can acceleration and industrialization be increased further? No, we don't even need that. Filter bags are back. So I remember that because I grew up with these filter bags. But the barista culture is something that's really coming back. Quality becomes much more important again. This now is a status, a symbol, and that's something we shouldn't forget. So we're really maneuvering between virtual and real reality. Virtual reality will become more normal, but something that you manufacture yourself that's authentic is equally important. The study confirmed that 77% of people say the more virtual reality there is, the more important the deceleration aspects become too. This is interesting. This is Starbucks, the largest service provider around coffee. Starbucks has a premium brand that was developed that's called Starbucks Reserve. And what is it? Filtered coffee. So in the luxury segment, the acceleration is that people are there for you, provide high quality. So in niche markets, that's a very important message for you. And now if you look at Starbucks, the industrial coffee segment was sold to Nestle. So you really need to understand the customer. You need to understand what they think is important to them. So next to the technological developments and the peer comparisons, this is something that will increase in importance and dynamics. So briefly, in summary, the digital world determines the analog world. For you, that's quite obvious, but it's quite clear that technologies need to be brought back into our analog reality. And those growing up with the digital technologies, they need to understand that their environment is digital, that it is virtual. Think of who you are selling your products to, who's your target group. If you understand that well, the faster you need to be. So acceleration is a great topic currently. Then also the willingness to provide your personal data to someone else, that will increase no matter what the lawyers say. Life needs to become faster and more comfortable. So remembering the pizza maker Domino's, if it's comfortable, then trust is also given to you by your customer. And what was separate in larger companies of production, selling and marketing, that customers are looked at from different angles, is something that needs to grow together. And producers and retailers are growing closer together because manufacturers can have mass contact with end customers now. And cultural communication in communities increases. The best customers are the most attractive ones. And there's one final picture for you. If you imagine you're not a retailer but a politician, then don't forget that this is not about you. It is not about what you say. It is about the customers and the perfect selfie where you might play a role in the background. Thank you very much. Step by step, you spoke to the hall that filled up with people. Are there things that scare you, by the way? Well, there are scary things, yes. We're just carrying out a large study with NRFS Infratest, a market research company, about the future and how we want to live in Germany. And there's hardly anyone wanting to contribute to design the future. So we're just trying to cope with what we have, trying to find our niche. But I think it's really important to go to the kids' room, open the window, and dream about the future. I think that's important. Is that now a political message to our German Chancellor, or is it something you address to all people, that we should think about our own lives and the future personally? Well, in reality, there's so much technological change at such a fast pace that we think we don't really have to think about the future. We just need to integrate a lot of things into our everyday life. And the importance of technology for us in our society means that we don't think about the political dimensions. It's something that's being negotiated in groups. The idea that we live in communities, that's labeled as communities, is something we observe. We can also globally see that we're withdrawing into our national borders in areas. So we really concentrate very much on our own lives and not the horizon. How do you keep up to date? We had the great honor to see you here personally, but how do you really keep up with all these trends? We could already have missed the next one. Well, I really studied printing and letter setting, and when I finished my course, that job was already not there anymore. So we really need to be informed about the basic science, but the developments until the trend really is in the end market is quite a longer period. It takes 5-10 years until a trend really develops into a product. And the big guiding principles that give us orientation are quite stable. So everything we looked at, networking, customization, personalized products, all these are things you can be sure of will be there for the next 5 to 10 years at least. So complex backends for everyone who wants to offer products will become more complex, but it will become easier for those who consume. Are you looking forward to the future? Yes, definitely. Professor Wippermann, thank you very much. I saw in your presentation that food was quite often there, autonomous cars. We have a lot other grocery and food providers, Domino's and so on. So this is a great opportunity. Oh,